Hi, my name is Minji, and today I'm at the BBC headquarters in London to meet Rachael Akidi, editor of the BBC's Focus on Africa. We are going to talk about the future of the radio and about the BBC World Service ahead of the World Radio Day. Let's go in. Hi Rachel, thank you for sitting with us today and inviting us to the BBC. And first off, could you tell us how long you have been working for the radio and what made you interested in the radio as a medium?
Yeah, I've been working for radio, in radio since 2000, the year 2000, so that's it's about 16 years now. I started off in Uganda working for a community radio station, and as unoriginal as it sounds, I fell in love with radio listening to the World Service, and that's because my late father, was a World Service fanatic, a BBC World Service fanatic. His dial did not change. He was constantly on the World Service. So it was very fascinating being able to hear all these voices, from around the world, and being able to hear all these stories. My first job was with a community radio. It was an all-women's radio in Uganda, where I was born. And then within a year, I was recruited by the BBC, and here I am, started working for the BBC African Service in 2002.
Can you tell us more about the BBC World Service and how it is uniquely placed to deliver all the programs that it is currently delivering?
Yeah, the BBC World Service is the world's leading broadcaster. We broadcast to an audience of 210 million people each week. Each week, yeah. And we deliver this news and current affairs in 30 languages. So we've got 30 language services in this building. And I think we're uniquely placed to deliver this because I think no other broadcaster has as many correspondents or covers as many countries as we do. And also, no other broadcaster has 74 bureaus around the world, and I think that's what makes the BBC unique, to be able to deliver this impartial, independent and very accurate news.
How does the BBC manage to engage with such a big audience, such a diverse audience?
Yeah, it is a complex operation, being able to speak to so many people who are not necessarily similar, people speaking different languages, living across different time zones, and all these issues have to be taken into account when organizing our programming. So for Focus on Africa, for example, yes, we're based in London, but this does not necessarily mean we do not engage with our audience, because the program is tailored for an African audience. It's a program, a news and current affairs program about Africa, made specially for an African audience. So our correspondents are on the ground in Africa. So they live with our audiences, they live the stories, and they feed this into our programming. What we do from here is just transmit the stories to the different audiences elsewhere. But also with new technology, we're able to engage them using text messages. We have a text messaging service where listeners can instantly react to what they're hearing.
You can interact. Real time.
Yeah, real time, and we get to read this on air if it's interesting what they're saying. With social media as well, we've got a huge following on Facebook and on Twitter, Instagram, and as well as Google+. So we mainly use Facebook and Twitter to engage the audiences and also get their reactions to issues and stories that affect them.
This year's theme of the World Radio Day is radio in times of emergency. So why is the radio, how can it be useful in such situations?
I think one of the unique things about radio is, one, it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. You don't need electricity, you don't need the internet to listen to the radio. It's free. You don't need to pay a subscription to anyone, or as long as you have a set, you can be able to listen to this program. So that's one of the good things about radio. And the other thing as well is, regardless of what happens, it's reliable. It's always there. So there will be an earthquake, there will be, a coup, or whatever happens, whatever emergency, you know that if the phones go down, if the internet goes down, if the power goes down, there'll always be a way of listening, and it's through the radio. I think that's one of the things that makes it, unique as compared to other mediums.
You said you've worked for the radios for the BBC since the year 2000, and can you recount one such occasion where you felt that the radio has had a significant impact, a significant life-changing or life-saving impact on a certain individual or a community?
I think there are many examples, but I'll use one of our language services, the BBC Great Lakes Service. I mentioned earlier that we have 30 language services, and one of them is the BBC's Great Lakes Service.
Great Lakes.
Yeah, so it broadcasts to countries in the Great Lakes region in Kinyarwanda and Kirundi. And I'm talking about Rwanda, Burundi, parts of Eastern Congo, Uganda, and Tanzania. Now, this service started off as a lifeline service in the immediate aftermath of the '94 genocide in Rwanda. And the whole idea was to try and reconnect families that had been lost. After the genocide, there was a conflict that followed, and thousands of people in Rwanda were displaced by the conflict. A lot of them traveled and escaped to different countries, to neighboring countries. So families were cut off from each other. Children, were split from their parents. And so a group of NGOs approached the BBC and asked the BBC whether they could help, try and reunite some of these families. And at that time, we had a Swahili service, we had a French service, and some of the people in those services spoke the local languages, Kirundi and Kinyarwanda. And so they decided to set up a 15-minute program, a daily program. And they were given names by these NGOs to use and basically to try and locate these families. And according to the editor, actually, thousands of people managed to reunite with their families through radio. And I think, to me, that is just the power.
So is that kind of power, the influence of radio, that keeps you motivated?
I think it is. I think one of the amazing things is when you get the reactions from people, just knowing that someone is listening, I think to me that's motivation enough. Yeah.
Currently, the radio is the world's most popular medium. And do you think that it is secure to say that the radio will remain the most popular medium as a means of communications in the future?
Yeah, if we're to go by the statistics in the US, where, the US is one of the most developed media markets, if anything, maybe the most developed media market in the world. And it's got all these other mediums flourishing. The media landscape is, huge, with internet, podcasts, social media nowadays, and all sorts of different platforms. But radio apparently is still also one of the biggest. Has maintained its listenership over the years, despite all these changes. So what I think will happen is radio will not necessarily be killed off, but there will be more options for people, and it will be another platform for people to listen to, one of the many platforms that people will have, to access their news and entertainment.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Yes. So that was Rachael Akidi. I hope you enjoyed the interview, and perhaps follow her program on Twitter or Facebook. And everyone, have a happy Road Radio Day.